is that where it's going?
Well,
I mean, isn't that the obvious? Is that
Yes.
they're planning for the future that hasn't happened yet?
We're sitting here after the keynote, and our biggest news is about the iPad.
Can we talk about how the inspiration is coming from Vision OS?
That's interesting. Yeah.
I found that fascinating.
Is liquid glass a big deal? I mean, I'm looking at you, Jake. Are you excited about liquid glass? Do you care about this whole change? And what exactly is happening here? Hello and welcome to the Tech Radar podcast, coming to you special from Apple Park and WWDC 2025 keynote. This is the post-keynote show, and I am joined by some very special guests. I have all the way over there, I have Jake Kroll, who is the U.S. Managing Editor at Tech Radar. Rich DeMuro sitting right next to him. He's a tech reporter at KTLA Morning News in LA. And Rich on the Tech Radio Show, which hopefully you all are listening to. And then sitting right here is Kate Kozich, who is the managing editor for social and video for Tom's Guide. That's right, Tom's Guide. Our friends. And, check them out on YouTube because they're also covering WWDC 2025. So look, I'm still buzzing from the whole thing. It's a lot to take in. It's 7 platforms. And I thought that what we would do here is kind of focus in on what really matters. What really matters to, in particular, consumers out there who are trying to digest this wave of information coming from Tim Cook, Craig Federighi, and company. It was a lot of stuff. The biggest change, and please feel free to jump in because I don't know, to me, it's a big change, is liquid glass. I will just say briefly that Apple's fascination with glass is undefeated.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in this place that we're at, Apple Park. Steve Jobs was a massive fan of glass, in particular architectural design, comes from his childhood growing up with buildings that were built that way, where sort of to bring the outside in. Now we have it inside all of these platforms. I mean, is liquid glass a big deal? I mean, I'm looking at you, Jake. Are you excited about liquid glass? Do you care about this whole change? And what exactly is happening here?
It's like I think it's the biggest redesign, and it hits every platform, which is a big deal. So it's sleeker, it's a little more translucent. It feels like the apps might be a little more lively. They might interact with each other, like when you slide across with a clicker on like the Mac, or when you're sliding across with your finger on the iPhone. It feels like a little more sleek. I think the name is quite good from an Apple branding perspective.
They seem to know what they're doing when it comes to branding new features.
Yeah. But I think we got to see also how like developers play with like the APIs, and like, will Instagram adopt a glass look? Will their app be translucent?
I was impressed, I think, because it's beautiful to look at, right? But I think that the utility it brings to me is what's more important. So, for example, you don't have to push aside a menu to show off what you're trying to show. Things can overlap. You can see through. You kind of know what's beneath it. And it's allowing them to extend stuff. Now, I guess some people might say, what if that creates some confusion with the system? It just feel like things are jumbled. I don't see that, at least in what I saw. I don't know, Kate, I mean, do you think that this is a general, like, by and large, improvement over the previous platform look and feel?
I can say it's an improvement, but that doesn't necessarily indicate what the reaction is going to be when people go to update their phones in September. Because remember, we're watching this. We know exactly what the iPhone looks like. If any friend asks us where and how to do anything, we can give them those answers. We're going to be spending the next couple of months on the developer and public betas, learning how to tell those stories and learning how to teach people how to use their iPhones in a new way. But inevitably, a lot of people are going to get their iPhone update having no idea what liquid glass is, having not heard about it until they go to update their phone in September, and they're going to have a whole new field to kind of navigate, and hopefully we'll be there to help them through that. But I think at the same time, there's going to be quite a few people that are like, what the heck just happened to my iPhone, to my iPad? That
happens every time. I mean, every update, no matter how big, and this is a big one, people, change is tough. Things are moved around, things are different. The way you did something yesterday is different. And so people, of course, take issue with that, but then they get used to it. But what I think is interesting about the liquid glass is that the iPhone, at its basic use is just a piece of glass. And it's become all of these things in our lives. So I actually think it's kind of neat that they came up with this idea of liquid glass, because it's almost like this shape shifter, right? It does whatever you need it to do. And now that has always been the phone. And of course, as they've gotten rid of, they've brought back some buttons and added new ones. But I think the idea that now the software extends that capability. It's like, here's your slab of glass to the developers, make it do something. And the software now does that as well, like follows through.
I did think it was interesting the way they talked about it, how it was both physical and not, right? They almost talked about liquid glass as if it was a real thing. And I think that was intentional, to your point, because it is sort of taking that external glass and bringing that look and feel inside. And it works, refraction works the same way, right? Reflections of objects nearby is just the same way your iPhone does. And I think that's really smart. Jake, you said something to me which I realize is actually really important. The last time we had a major iOS update was iOS 7, right? That was a fundamental, that was as big a change as you could have. But back then, how many platforms did we have? Right?
Not this many.
No.
That's right. So, because that's the other thing about this, right? Liquid glass is going everywhere.
Yeah.
It's on all the platforms, which I actually think is smart.
Yeah.
Because it creates, Apple's so good at ecosystem, it's so good at consistency. And to bring this level of consistency across all of these platforms at once, well, that's either going to help or hurt, as far as how people feel about change, right? I mean, are you guys all comfortable with that kind of change? We're more technologists, so maybe we are. I mean, Jake, you're chill with it.
I'm pretty okay with it. I hope it looks nice and it's functional, but some of the changes that come along with it, like the camera app redesign, I really don't get why they're going back to like just 2 buttons and how that kind of looks. But I'm cool with it. I think it'll be a better approach because it can hit everything. So it's not like you're just surprised one day, oh, your iPhone looks like glass.
Well, all right. So let's.
Well, and the way Apple, they have so many products at this point, and these products were all born of different teams, but now things are much more working together, and to unify them with this sort of same design language across everything, I think makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you're now introducing new elements like the windowing in the iPad operating system. So it's like they continue to kind of bring things together, but also differentiate them, which I think is smart for the product line and also how we use these products.
Wait, and can we talk about how the inspiration is coming from Vision OS?
That's interesting. Yeah.
I found that fascinating.
And look, that's what all the rumors said, right? That's okay. Both Jake and I don't know how the rest of you, we've spent a lot of time in on the Vision Pro and in Vision OS. And I will say that it has an incredibly distinctive look and feel. It's always looked like sandy, like polished, not polished because it's glass, but it has like sort of a texture to it. And that was very distinctive to me, and I liked it, and I liked how the icons moved. But it is the sort of the smallest player among all of Apple's major platforms. It has the fewest number of users. So you would never normally expect that platform to inspire the largest and most important platforms. The only thing I can think...
But...
Yes. Go ahead, Rich.
Is that where it's going?
Well,
isn't that the obvious? Is that they're planning for the future that hasn't happened yet, and the future, even though Vision Pro is, it hasn't been the commercial success that they've wanted it to be, but it's going to take time. It's very expensive, and the technology is so new, and they threw the best at the platform from the start. So now they sort of have to work backwards and say, okay, how can we make this more affordable? How can we build this in? But that's the future. Let's be honest. I mean, every company is working on these glasses.
Wait a minute. Is Vision Pro, is Vision OS like the beta platform? Like, you know what? There's few enough people using this that it's okay. We're going to try something completely different, and then if it works out, we'll just use it everywhere. I mean, it's such an odd thing, but I have to realize now that I was using the future. I mean, I've always called Vision Pro the future, but I was literally using the future of all of these platforms. Quickly, before we talk about iPad, how does everybody feel about switching from 19, from this version number to this year number idea on the platforms? And I'll start with Jake. Are you pro, con?
In the middle, I'd say. Which I know is kind of a cop-out. But
Yeah.
I think I'll get used to it by the time it rolls around. But it kind of feels like they're also... Apple's giving themselves a little bit more wiggle room in that they can ship features a little later. potentially by naming it a year in advance. So like they didn't really tease anything that they said is coming later, but who knows come September.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Rich,
Well, and they nowadays it used to be the update was like boom. Now it's like very gradual, like you're getting stuff throughout the year. So I guess in that aspect, so I was going to say I take issue with the fact that it's 26, but it's coming out in 25, so it's a little confusing. But the fact that they trickle out new features throughout the year, that makes sense, right? Because you don't want to name it 25 for this year, and all of a sudden the whole next year you're getting all these little updates and things, and it seems odd. So I think it makes sense, and it'll make life a little bit easier for people, I think.
Kate.
I am so indifferent to it. I think it's iOS, it's iPadOS. It matters to us when we have to communicate about what these features are and kind of in our heads create our list of what was last year versus this year, what's new for the year before that. But iOS is iOS to most people, right?
Yeah. That's a very fair, that's actually
true.
a really fair point. When I talk to my family, I talk to my wife, I'll say, did you update? Because sometimes you have a problem. I have no idea.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know.
Most people are not doing
And
that
I-
refresh like
No
we
one,
I
are.
don't care.
I-
Yeah.
Like
no
you.
one knows what software update they're on. If you ask anyone just what's version, no one knows.
But I am slightly concerned about something you said, Rich, is that why have we shifted to this idea of things trickling out? I mean, we used to get the full boat. So is that, it's a really good point. It's not something I had considered before because I'm kind of like, why am I thinking about next year when I'm in this year? We're not even halfway through this year. We're just about halfway through. And we're talking about 2026. But you think it's really all about giving them sort of the runway to deliver these features over time, and then by the time we get to 2026, we got the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 2020, like this will launch in September, usually the end of September, 2025. But that's just the base of iOS 26. And then, coming out in January, February, March, April, May, like they'll just give you little things that like, oh, we're done with this feature, which I think is probably better because people like new features. I mean, I know we do.
Yeah.
But to your point about the average person, they're not anticipating this stuff as much as we are. So I think it makes sense for them because by the time they realize there's a new iOS, for the average person, it is 2026. By the time Christmas comes around, the holidays come around, that's when people get a lot of
100%.
iPhones. January 1st this year, and you're on the new iPhone with iOS 26. It makes a lot of sense to the average consumer.
All right. I'm kind of sold on the idea. It's not something I considered. Well, all right. So I want to shift a little bit because the star of the show, as far as I'm concerned, the stunning and shocking and unexpected star of the show of this keynote was iPadOS. Now that doesn't sound right because iPadOS has never been the star, the celebrity, the platform everyone talks about because it's a tablet. It has certain limitations based on that. But Apple flipped the script. Apple changed everything. And I watched the tenor of the mood change at the keynote as they started to reveal exactly what they were doing with this thing. I mean, Kate, I'm not overselling this, right? This is a fundamental shift.
Not at all. I mean, iPadOS 26 is that girl. That was meant for me. Truly, I am an iPad person, and for it to get its moment, I think makes it less of an optional device to have. I feel like people get their iPhone and then they get their Mac, and then that's when the Apple Watch and iPad kind of come into the story. But I think a lot more iPads are going to be in people's hands as a result of these experiences.
So Jake, if somebody's like saying, well, what's the big deal? What did they do? What has actually happened to this platform?
So you'll basically be able to window apps. So in the sense how you can layer apps on like a Mac, you can do that on the iPad now. So you can put Mail in like a tiny little square and then put Notes in a much bigger square. And you can minimize, you can expand, you can split your screen. It's like...
And I heard there's a menu.
Yeah, the
There's
menu
a-
at the I was
The
surprised
menu
by
bar.
that.
There's a menu
What do we
bar.
think?
There's a completely updated file management system that looks sort of similar. You can see it as a list, and you could organize it, and you can. I'm like, oh, all the things you could do on a desktop. Oh, and background tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, so
But
not,
done in the Apple way, where it's still going to be sort of, developers have to code for that so that it doesn't ruin your battery or it's not doing something nefarious in the background. And so I think it's a smart move to get people to use the iPad in new ways and sell a whole lot of these. Because for me, like I always tell people, if you want to get work done, get a laptop.
Right.
If you want a small combination of productivity and entertainment, go with the iPad. But now it's like, now you get to choose. You say, no, I travel a lot. I want this iPad, and I can do all the things I need to do on there. Versus before, you needed a laptop to do certain things. I think it opens up a wide range of possibilities for people that just weren't there before.
And the entry point for iPads is a lot more affordable than an Apple laptop. So
Yeah, until you add a Magic Keyboard.
Yeah.
And you realize how expensive those are.
Right.
You're like, wait, what? That's a keyboard.
Right, because they don't ship with the keyboard, they don't ship with the Apple Pencil.
But you can add it if you want it, and that's the beauty of it. Is you can
Right.
build the
Right.
system that you want. So maybe you only need an Apple Pencil. Maybe you want to get a third-party keyboard. Like, that's the cool thing about what they've done here is they've opened it up. They're saying, look, we understand people have been asking for this for so long. We're finally giving it to you, and do as you please. Like, you want to do this? Go for it.
So I guess the thing that I'm realizing is that Apple is kind of making a touchscreen laptop here, right? They're coming so close. If you put the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, and you've got an interface, and by the way, they improved the mouse capability, right? They made it more precise. They did everything, just about, it seems, everything they could to inch this as close as possible to the Mac without making it a Mac, because no MacBook, no Mac has a touchscreen, has the capability of handling pencil input. So that just seems to be, I mean, there are very few other differentiators left beyond those things.
Which begs the question. Well,
Right.
next year they have a touchscreen Mac. I mean, what keeps them from doing that now? Because everyone thought there was a line with the iPad of we're not crossing this line.
Right.
And they just crossed it. So now what does it keep? Now it seems like all bets are off when it comes to the MacBook because it felt like they were protecting that world. But now do they need to do that? Because they're allowing people to choose. So could the MacBook have a touchscreen next?
You know what? I mean, Jake, is that crazy? I mean, I've been doing this just slightly bit longer, and I can remember, Steve Jobs explaining why this was a terrible idea, right?
And what was the reason?
Not want. It's just like, who wants to reach over and touch the screen? Like, what do you want to do that for?
I
It's
do
like,
all the time. How many times? I do this all the time where I'm using, because I use the iPad, and all of a sudden on the Mac, I'm just like, I want to close a window or something, and I tap it, and I'm like, oh, can't do that on here.
No, and I don't know. Maybe that's what people want. I am kind of curious, Kate, because you said you're very into the iPad. But could you imagine sort of really leaving your MacBook behind potentially and doing all of your work now on this iPad OS 26 platform?
I can now. If you asked me this 3 hours ago, no. But
So your world has changed. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the crazy thing that we're sitting here at WWDC, after the keynote, and our biggest news is about the iPad. I mean, it really feels like that.
If you think about the way people use the iPad, it's kind of like that slab of glass that's been adapted in a million different ways. And so the fact that you're now opening up a whole new layer of abilities with this I don't think it can be understated. Like, I really think this is going to be big for the iPad. And like you said, like, you're already like, I'm good to go. Like, I will use this tomorrow. Is there something you do on your computer that you can't do on the iPad? Like, I guess that becomes the question, is people are going to start looking like, okay, because I'm thinking in my head, I do video editing, I do a lot of uploading, I kind of drag a lot of things around on my computer, like different files and stuff. And it seems like I could do all that on here.
It really depends for me on like the mouse ability. So I'm thinking about I spend a lot of time I do Photoshop work, quite a bit of it, and I'm very quick with the mouse, and I'm moving around, and I'm resizing things, and I'm cropping things, and I'm selecting stuff, and it's super intuitive to me. And I love the iPad. I tend to draw on it a lot. I do use it for some productivity stuff, but I always find that sort of disconnect. Like I'm like, okay, if I really got to get it done, and I switch over to the Mac. So the true test here is going to be if you just stick on that path. If you stick on the iPad path and you just go all the way through with whatever process you're doing. I have no idea what this does to the Mac market, like if it impacts it in any way or if it actually expands things. Will more people buy the iPad because of this fundamental change? All right, I want to switch it up a bit because since we're talking about the surprise, right? To me, this stands out as the surprise of the event because I never would have expected it. But then I think we do have to talk about Apple Intelligence and Siri. Apple Intelligence permeated the event in a way. it seems to be getting more intelligent. I can't say I was impressed by the emojis. Like, you can combine more things to make different. I didn't really understand why that was highlighted. That's still not giving us generative image creation on par with what anyone else is doing. But I wanted to know, I mean, Rich, when you look at the story revolving around Apple Intelligence and Siri, what's your takeaway there?
My takeaway is it's what Apple's not saying. You know, they're leaving out the part that we're not giving you what these other companies are giving you right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing on the iPhone, because the features they are giving you are, you know, they're evolved enough. Like the writing tools, I'm not sure how many people are using that. And if you want to really use the sort of powerful AI stuff, you still have the option of using Gemini or ChatGPT. Right. Now, yes, it requires a little more copy and paste. And the smart Siri would have been nice, like the thing we were promised, like, hey, I'm meeting up with you. Tell me all the emails this person sent me in the last year and like catch me up. Like we don't have that, right?
No.
But I'm not sure we really have that from Google or ChatGPT yet. I mean, there's like little parts of it. So I don't think anyone has gotten to the point where like AI is like, this is, I mean, yes, we use it in our daily lives. A lot of us do, but not everyone. Right. And so I think the iPhone still has all the things you want, and it does everything else really good. And so it's like you can look past that and just say, oh, I know Apple is sort of waiting until they get this right. And I think people that the mainstream user of the iPhone just sort of knows that. And they're like, all right, they don't have it right yet.
I have many reactions, but before I react, Kate, what was your takeaway here? Are you disappointed? Are you like, okay, I get it?
I kind of feel like I'm left with more questions than answers in some regards. I am hoping that by the end of this year, we will end up hearing a bit more, getting that, new Siri experience. I wouldn't be shocked if that is going to come to us with iPhone 17, which was not announced at WWDC.
Obviously.
But you have to think, I'm already looking ahead of what's going to be next and what's going to be coming. And I agree with Rich. I mean, having it right is more important than having it before all the competitors out there right now. So as someone who has been kind of slow to really embrace AI as it is, I have no qualms with the pace of rollout.
All right. Jake, I mean, are you willing to give him a pass here? Or?
Sort of. I agree with what Rich and Kate said in that we got to give them time to get it right. And it's better to release something that could hit like a bunch of people's iPhones that works. I'm at least happy that they acknowledged it, but they kind of just read the statement they said, which was just that in the coming year, it'll be around.
That's right. Yeah. Whatever that means.
Not
whatever
any more
the coming
definitive.
year means.
Yeah, that's a whole year.
I've had many conversations about the exact meaning of those words because I don't know. I honestly don't know what they mean. I am concerned, and I'll tell you why. It has a lot to do with the pace of. So I wrote something about this. I call it AI time, right? We're on AI time. That's a whole different thing. It is not at the pace that technology moved in the past. And I feel like Apple's approach here, has been careful and respectful to our privacy, which is excellent, is not really recognizing what is happening around them. No matter what you say, Apple is behind in this race. Now, that has a lot to do with the competitors not caring. They don't really worry about all the things that Apple worries about every single day when it's doing its development. It is so clear that the strategy and approach is so different. But in the AI era, I don't know if they can afford to be that careful. And that's my ongoing frustration.
But how many people have switched to a Pixel or a Samsung because they say, oh, my iPhone doesn't have the features I need with AI? Nobody. There's not one person I know. I've never heard that term. And if you want the AI features, like I said, you could download the apps. And to most people, the way the iPhone works in general, when you want a feature, you download an app. And so Apple is not outside of the realm of how they've operated in the past with every feature. I mean, if you think about, the bigger screens, the stylus, the multiple cameras, the larger phones, like everything has been a little bit slower with Apple while they figure out how to get it right for their massive audience. Whereas a lot of these other companies just throw a lot at the wall, see what sticks. And again, with the privacy stuff, Apple does not want, I'm sure this with the Genmojis that they came out with, they didn't want people making emojis of weird things that were going to be put on social media. And you didn't really see that.
No.
Same thing with the privacy stuff. They don't want a privacy gaffe with all of your information being sent to Siri and Siri popping out something that you're like, oh, and everyone's sharing that. So they have to do it carefully because all that information is on your phone, and they want to make sure that they do it in the right way.
Okay, that's fair.
And I'm not defending them. I'm just saying this is how they operate.
First of all, I agree. People are not switching for this. You're 100% right. I think the problem is that Apple invites this criticism because it launched Apple Intelligence, because it told us last year that it would use the information carefully about you on your phone and work on there to deliver an experience unlike any other.
Yes.
We did not get that.
Now that I will take issue with, because they did not, and again, this is what I said earlier about, it's more about what they didn't say. They didn't give an apology. They didn't give an update to say, hey, we promised this last year. We have made zero progress on that whatsoever, like in public. Like, of course, privately, whatever they're doing. But that is what I take issue with. The fact that they're taking it slow is fine. It's just that they promised all this stuff and they had commercials and we still didn't get it. And they didn't say anything about that. They didn't say oh, we should have, it's taking us a little bit longer. They did like you said, in this certain way they said it, but they didn't really come out and say it. I think that's what I take issue with.
Just the contrast, though, now. I'm thinking back to Google I.O. a couple of weeks ago where they love to do the AI counter, 100 mentions of AI in the same, 90-minute span versus today. I think some people argue it's a nice little break from AI everything to have, more focus on features that obviously have intelligence built around them, but let them be their own thing. But on the other hand, your points are totally valid. So I kind of feel like I'm in between right here.
Jake,
tiebreaker.
Yeah. So who's right, Jake? Just tell us.
I still feel, I guess, Apple's a little bit in the wrong, especially because, as Rich brought up, they did advertise it. There were commercials with all this stuff.
Not the commercials. The receipts. Those are the receipts.
Those are the receipts, yeah. So
they left them up.
This kind of leads to a different part of the conversation because I think Apple is doing something different here. And I think that this is where they don't necessarily get all the credit. So we look at macOS Tahoe, right? That's the new name for the desktop platform. And the thing that really stuck out for me is Spotlight. That's an existing feature that they seem to have supercharged with intelligence and with connections to shortcuts in a way I'd never seen before. And I barely care about Spotlights because it feels so limited as a way of traversing my system. But Kate, it seems to have transformed.
I've only ever used Spotlight to open apps that are not on my dock, right? If I need to quick access open, that's truly the only reason I use Spotlight. But now that it might be able to use context from what I have open on my screen already to answer a next question or help me locate that next tidbit of information I'm looking for, seems pretty cool. I will say the shortcuts, the new ability to kind of code in how you want to be able to navigate will be interesting if done effectively. I already feel like it might be a situation where I'm not going to set it up properly and then I'm not going to actually be able to use it. Who has time for that? But if done properly and in the demos that we saw in the keynote, I think everyone should go back and check that out if they haven't had the chance to already. It seems like an effective way to navigate.
So, Richard, have you somebody who uses shortcuts at all?
It's funny you say that because I set one up right before the keynote.
For what?
Okay, because I wanted, I used Notion. And I was like, oh, instead of getting to Spotlight, wouldn't it be cool if I could just search my Notion? Because that's where I keep all my documents that I'm working on. And so I literally went through and figured out how to set a keystroke shortcut to open the Notion searcher from anywhere. And I set it as option spacebar. You can't, I don't know if I could redo the command spacebar for shortcut.
Was it easy to set up?
Yeah, it was simple. And all of a sudden now I just have to remember to use it. Like you're saying, this is very power user stuff. And I think the only thing I've ever used Spotlight for in the past is what you said, is finding an app that's not on my dock or my home screen, whatever. And also not even finding a document, because I'll just go and I'll look for a document for 10 minutes before I'll search for it.
That's what keyword. Finder is for.
Yeah, you go into Finder.
Right.
And then I'll use it for contacts. Literally when I need an address or a phone number for someone, I'll just do that. But I think giving people options in that regard. And I'll be honest, I kind of snoozed during that part because I was doing other stuff. Because I think Mac, like, I'll be honest, like the way I use my Mac, like Mac OS, is the same way I've used it for years, and I don't really evolve it because I don't need to. It just does what I need to do, and I click around. So
that's like the 80.
For now.
That's the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the people use 20% of the features of these platforms, and I think that's true of most consumers. And it's one of the reasons that I'm a little tiny bit concerned about the shortcut part of it. I feel like I wish there was an easier, for consumers, it's a really smart idea. The ability to have some like quick code that you can drop into Spotlight that helps sort of supercharge the search in a way, but having to build that action on the other side. And Jake, you and I know we have a coworker who's actually really into shortcuts and uses them. And it kind of feels like when we write about sometimes we talk about it as like a superpower that you don't know your system has.
It's incredible.
And shortcuts are on the iPhone and on the Mac. So there are other places, but we could go into that quite deeply because I think that a lot of people would get a lot of use out of it. But what I will say is that what was interesting to me is that the combination of some intelligence there in Spotlight seems to kind of transform it. Contextually aware search is always going to be valuable. I have a question for you guys, though, and I wonder if someone can explain this to me. And I hate to go back to Apple Intelligence, but I have to ask. We all saw like it being able to understand your screen, right? I felt like every time they were doing it, they were taking a screen grab.
Yeah.
Am I misinterpreting that?
No, that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
You have to take a screenshot to search, which I think is odd.
I thought that was odd too. I was kind of like, I love the idea of being able to do any kind of contextual search on any platform, but I don't want an extra step. I don't want to have to take a screenshot of it. I want to be able to say to maybe Siri, hey, on this screen, can you tell me what that is?
Yeah.
And so this is basically Apple. This is their App Visual Intelligence, right? So, which is a part of the whole Apple Intelligence thing. But that's the bigger lesson here is just, when Apple wants to introduce these really incredible features, it always has to seek simplicity. And generally, it's very good at that. I do worry about the shortcut part.
Sometimes there likes to be a moment where it's like, hey, we're going to give it to you this way. And then next year we can say, look at how much we improved and transformed this, even though it would have been nice to have this in the first place.
Look at that. You're right in the strategy. There were obviously there were other platforms that were updated. tvOS got the liquid glass look, and watchOS got some updates. And the thing that really stuck out for me is the Workout Buddy. Jake, now the Workout Buddy is more than just somebody who yells at you to work out harder, right?
Yes, I like the way you said it before. It's kind of a nudge to a degree. It's like a helpful nudge that's kind of bringing the best of the activity rings with. You did an awesome 5-mile run or a 10K, or you did an awesome cycle workout, and then kind of to push you to do a little more, or maybe to step back on it. But I like that it's localized to your data, so it's taking that health data and kind of customizing it and serving it up for you. And
personalized too, like a personal trainer. I mean,
that's smart. I think that's really smart because how many times do you look at all of the data that the iPhone is collecting, when it comes to your health data? It's pretty incredible how much is there. But really, what do you look at? You closed your rings that day, whatever. But if it's like, hey, before you head out on this run or whatever, if you can do an extra 0.2 of a mile or keep going for 0.2, you'll break your best record ever. Like, that's kind of cool to have while you're out there.
Kate, is that something you would like? Do you need somebody to like push you?
No one could ever convince me to run a 10K, let alone my Apple Watch. No, I think it left me wanting a little bit because the Apple Watch is such a robust health tool, right? And working out and fitness is a steering part of that. I think that's probably the biggest entry why people are buying one. But if you use the other health features, I wish I had a life buddy, a wellness buddy, maybe not a workout buddy, if that makes sense. Something to, encourage me to get to sleep a little bit earlier, or through the audio cues, maybe guide me a little bit more on the other aspects of my life. Stress, like, hey, yelling at you, you need to like take it easy. You seem stressed.
And all that
you haven't stood for a while, like instead of a little stand-up thing, like and they could expand it to that, which I think that's actually the idea of like a wellness buddy is probably a really good idea.
A wellness brief, maybe, when you start the day.
Wait a minute. Brief.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So there is another platform that has something called Brief. But
Like something in the now.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right. Apple has all of this information. It knows when I go to sleep. It tells me like I'm approaching my sleep time. It tells me when I've achieved like a certain 3 days in a row I've achieved my sleep goal. All of that is there. Sometimes it's not all fully connected. But in the case of like a workout buddy with somebody talking to me, all right, I do use the Apple Watch when I work out. In fact, if I work out and I'm not wearing the Apple Watch, I actually start to think it doesn't count.
Yeah,
That's how.
That's true.
It's not worth
No,
it.
that's fair.
Right.
Doesn't count.
But I also listen to podcasts when I work out. I don't want another voice interspersing in the middle of Mark Maron talking to me and saying,
show's
Lance,
ending,
if you can, look, Lance, if you could do another curl. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm trying to get to the end of this podcast. But I did find that interesting. And I do. By the way, I think that the WatchOS redesign with liquid glass, I think that's one of the best. Like, it looked really sharp. I'm actually really excited. And if you have like an Apple Watch Ultra, I think it's just going to look spectacular.
Especially on the Smart Stack.
Yeah, that looks beautiful. So I'm kind of. This is what I love about liquid glass is that it being on all the platforms, it's going to have a slightly different. It's like you put a piece of glass in different places, it has a different experience, right? Because of everything around it. And I think that's what's happening across all these platforms. So I'm actually really excited about that. Now, one thing I'm a little less excited about, and I wanted to talk to you about, is that we know that sometimes at WWDC in the keynote, it's a moment for hardware. Now, there's different ways we can present it. They will do full-on release of something. They'll say, we've introduced a new laptop, or they could do, here's a tease of something to come. Or they can do what they did this time, which is no hardware at all. And I know it's a developer event. And I know I've talked to analysts over the years, and they always tell me the same thing. Developer event, don't expect any hardware product releases. That's what they tell me every time. But
they've done it.
They've done it.
Times.
Exactly. So am I wrong? Am I wrong to have wished for that? I mean, Kate, am I just being a pain in the neck because I say, why didn't you do this for me?
Not at all. I mean, where is my HomePod with a display?
There you go. That's right.
Where's a little preview of the thin iPhone? The iPhone Air, like
products,
something.
This is the place to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the time to tease it and kind of cue things up. And it always is a little bit of a tough feeling at the end when we don't get that one more thing moment.
That's right. Jake, you and I talked a lot about like the opportunity to redo the Vision Pro in some fashion. I mean, what could they have done there that would have turned us on?
Even just like a price cut on the current one
price
would have
drop.
been nice. Like a tease at the smart glasses that they're rumored to be working on. They could have done something, and I think it would have spiced up the show a little more.
Yeah, I 100% agree with this, and I think that this is, again, a case of where I sometimes want to say to Apple, look at the time you're living in. So it became aware that it was living in the time of AI, and then it tried to do it in its very specific way, but I still feel like it's out of step. It's also living in the time of VR and AR. Now, it has the Vision Pro, but now we're getting on its 2 years, right, since the introduction. It's the most powerful and incredible piece of hardware in that space to this day, but it's out of the reach of most consumers. And the bigger story right now in the space is AR glasses. That's what all of their competitors do. We believe Apple is working on something in that space. What an amazing thing it would have been to tease something and get developers truly excited. Now,
well, let's just think about all the products that Apple theoretically has coming down the line. Foldable phone, touch-based MacBook, perhaps, glasses, a smart ring. There's just so many things. Like you said, the HomePod with the display. Am I missing anything? What else?
There was a robotic arm, which was going to have a display on it, which is something that might have. I'm doing, by the way, we can see I'm doing the robotic arm.
But it's like what you said earlier, Rich. It's what they're saying without saying.
Yeah.
But it's tough because I think we're so used to these companies sort of putting everything out there and showing us little previews. Like even Google, like last year at I/O showed us those glasses that they put on, remember, with like the augmented.
With no name, no anything.
Nothing.
Just here is an application that we actually are working on that could be used in this way. Get developers while they're here and have their ears on it, thinking about what their apps could be doing in that way.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of opportunity here that they are taking a very safe route. And I get what you're saying is that it's like we are in an age of technology that's moving really fast. And you have this company that is sort of the leader in the world, but yet they take a very slow approach to things, for better or for worse. I mean, there's a lot at stake, and I think that's probably the bigger issue.
Right. It's methodical, but it can be frustrating.
Yeah,
But
for us.
Isn't it also classic Apple though to never tease anything, and they're only going to drop?
But they
one at a
stuff in the
time?
past. Remember the Air Power. I guess that's why
yeah.
they stopped.
They tried that one.
I didn't wanna say it.
R.I.P. But
That's why they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But they, the Mac Pro, what was sometimes called the trash can.
Yeah.
Vision Pro was a tease. Remember
Vision
the
Pro-
first time they showed it? It was just you couldn't touch it. It was just like on the thing.
Except
right?
they did
they do demos?
They
Yeah.
did demos.
Oh, they did demos.
They did
Okay.
demos. So there is a for Apple, in order for them to show something like that, I do believe they think, well, we've got to show it working in some fashion. People have to have some understanding of where we're going with this. So I get it. There is a risk. But I feel like in this moment where it's been a bit of a rough year, but not all winning. And I'm still very impressed with the things Apple's done here, but I think that this might have been the year where maybe they swing a little bit harder. And I think that they to your point, Rich, they took maybe a safer route. All right. Well, look, I don't want to harp on this only because, in all fairness, again, a developer event, we have so many different platforms. We have 26 now. We're looking ahead to the year across every single platform. We have a completely changed iPad platform. And we have liquid glass. So, I just want from each of you briefly your takeaway feeling from this keynote. Jake, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised, but the iPad is the biggest deal to me, and I'm very excited to see how it continues to evolve, and I'm fascinated to know how they got it to work on the entry-level one. So we'll see.
Rich?
Personally underwhelmed, but as Apple marches forward as a company that supplies phones and products for so many people that rely on them, I think it's just fine. Like the stuff they came out with is like incremental updates to and polish to products that everyone uses. And I don't think my mom or anyone that's, the average tech consumer is going to be like, I was really disappointed that I didn't get XYZ. No, It's like, I can't wait to try the new look and feel of that. And I got what I needed.
Kate?
I think the Photos app, kind of the return to the tabs feature, I love that there was an acknowledgement that said, hey, people miss this. Let's bring it back. We should see that more often and all the time.
Yeah. Very, very smart. Very smart. Good for Apple to listen to its consumers. And, really the big consumer story from Apple is going to happen in September when we expect all new iPhones and other products. And you know what? We'll come right back here and we'll talk about it all again. But I want to thank all of you guys. Jake, Rich, Kate, thank you so much for joining us on the Tech Radar podcast from Apple Campus at WWDC 2025. I'm Lance Ulanoff, Editor-at-Large, Tech Radar. And thanks for listening. And don't forget to follow us everywhere on every platform.